The funeral isn't even half over before you know you're not part of them anymore. The pews creak under the weight of shared glances and whispered updates. Your name doesn't come up, not once. Not during the eulogy, not in the slideshow, not even in the offhand stories traded between people who used to pinch your cheeks at Christmas. You sit 3 rows back alone. No one reserved you a seat in the front, even though you're his child too. It's not anger that rises in you first, it's that slow, bruised ache of confirmation. You'd felt it growing for years, but this is the first time they said it without saying a word. The family you grew up with is now its own private club. And somehow you're the one who didn't pay dues. A cousin nods vaguely at you in the hallway afterward, like you're someone she sort of recognizes from a high school yearbook. Another walks right past you to talk to your half-sister, who despite being 10 years younger and barely speaking to your dad, is now being called the heart of the family. You want to scream, but instead you sip lukewarm coffee in a paper cup and smile at a beige wall. In the parking lot, your aunt clutches a to-go container and says to your face, "It's so sad you don't have a family of your own to grieve with." That one hits differently. You're not married, no kids, no one holding your hand. They've always treated that like a kind of personal failure, as if being single is proof that you don't know how to love. But what they don't see is the peace you've built in silence. The quiet mornings, the small kitchen filled with plants, the dog who greets you like you're the whole sun every single day. You do have a family, just not one they'd invite to Thanksgiving dinner. Still, her words stick. They sting like vinegar in a paper cut. You leave early, skipping the after-service lunch, and drive home in the kind of silence that feels colder than it should. You unlock your front doorstep inside your house, and something inside you shifts. This place, it smells like you. It reflects your rhythm, your shoes by the door, your photos not of people who forget your name but of sunsets, poems you've written, the dog curled in a perfect spiral on the couch. You sit down on the floor cross-legged and stare at nothing for a few minutes. Not crying, just breathing. Because maybe this moment of breath, this quiet, is where your real grief lives. Not for your father, but for the idea that family, the one you were born into, might never make space for you again. And here's the twist you don't say out loud: a small part of you is relieved. Because now there's nothing left to prove. No more fighting for a seat at their table. No more second-guessing your worth based on how many invitations you didn't get. You get up, make tea, and pet your dog who couldn't care less about bloodlines or family trees. He just knows you're his person, and that's enough for now. You fall asleep that night not feeling broken, just separate. Like someone who's finally realized the door you've been knocking on for years. Maybe it was locked on purpose. You never bought the house to prove anything. It wasn't some grand act of defiance. No neon "look what I did" banner. Just a small sunlit place at the end of a quiet street with creaky floorboards and a chipped tile in the kitchen that you kept meaning to fix but never did because it felt like character. You saved quietly. While your cousins were posting photos from cruises and baby showers, you were saying no to lattes and side hustling with freelance gigs after your regular 9 to 5. No GoFundMe, no borrowed down payment. Just old-fashioned work and 1,000 Tuesday nights spent alone at your desk. You didn't tell anyone when you got approved for the loan, didn't even post it on Instagram. Just signed the papers, picked up the keys, and whispered thank you to no one in particular as you stepped into the empty living room for the first time. Your dog barked at his own echo, then settled into the corner like he already knew this was your place. You built peace into that house, one ritual at a time. Fridays became grocery and laundry days. Sundays meant jazz records and lemon pancakes. You learned how to hang shelves slightly crooked, fix a leaky faucet eventually, and paint a wall without getting it all over the baseboards after the 3rd try. And maybe what stung most was knowing they'd never ask. Not once did your family say, "Hey, where are you living these days?" No housewarming gifts. No surprise visits. Just radio silence. As if your life paused when you left theirs. But they noticed. Of course they did. You remember catching your aunt glancing at your keys when you visited your cousin's baby shower last year. You driving a hybrid now, she asked in that way that meant she had already Googled the model. You shrugged. It's practical. They never asked how you afforded it, but you could feel the math working behind their eyes. They assumed you had no one to spend your money on. No kids, no partner. Just extra cash lying around, as someone once said in a group text you accidentally got added to. The part they never imagined, the part you didn't feel like explaining, is that you built this life so you'd never need to ask them for a thing. Not a loan, not a couch to crash on, not a ride to the airport. You weren't angry about it, just quietly determined. Until one Tuesday evening after work, you opened your front door and froze. There, sitting on your porch bench like she'd never left, was Aunt Marion. Floral suitcase, bright cardigan, the same perfume she wore at your graduation. "I figured it was time I came to visit," she said, beaming. "You've got the space now, right?" The way she said it like it was obvious. Like your house was theirs, just waiting for them to remember it existed. Your dog barked once, low, cautious. You stood in the doorway, hands still on the knob, trying to understand what was happening. Marion stood up, wiped imaginary crumbs off her skirt, and brushed past you like she owned the air inside. "Oh, good light in here," she said, peering into the living room. "I can already see where my reading chair will go." Your mouth opened, but no words came. She turned back, laughing. "Oh, don't look so surprised. We're family." Family. That word again, always thrown like a blanket over something cold. You followed her inside, each step heavier than the last. She didn't ask if you were okay with it. Didn't ask if you had plans. Just assumed as if your space was her inheritance, your silence, her invitation. In the kitchen, she helped herself to water, complimented your taste in dishware, mentioned how your cousin Julian might swing by soon. You know how tight things are for him these days. And just like that, it wasn't a visit. It was a move. You stared at the floor, at the chipped tile you'd never fixed. Suddenly, it looked like a fault line. Something shifted again, but this time it didn't feel like grief. It felt like a warning. You find out about the group chat by accident. A text pops up while you're showing your coworker a meme. You glance down, meaning to ignore it, but there it is. Your cousin Lydia's name in the preview bubble. Followed by, "Should we tell them yet? I mean, the house is basically ours once they fold." Your breath catches. It's not just the words. It's the fact that the message clearly wasn't meant for you. It's the word "them," as if you're already erased, turned into a shadow in your own story. You don't say anything to Lydia, not yet. Not even when you see her post a photo the next day of a random backyard captioned, "Manifesting this view, Shakti family first." You scroll through her account and a pattern forms. Photos of home decor boards. A mood board for dream spaces. One post even says, "Soon. Big changes. We deserve a soft place to land." You look at the date. The photo was posted the day Aunt Marion first showed up at your place. There's this slow burn inside you, not quite fury, not yet. More like betrayal pressed through cheesecloth. Filtered, clean, still sharp. You poke around online. Group chats on messenger apps you're not part of. Private story tags that stop including you. The phrase "family support network" shows up in a post, but you're not listed in the comment thread. Then you overhear it. At a birthday party, your niece you think where you were only half invited. You're refilling your drink when you catch the whisper. Well, if things don't work out at their place, there's always the backup plan. You don't interrupt, don't even flinch. Just keep pouring ginger ale like your ears are made of fog. Later that night, you stare at your living room, at the throw blanket your friend gave you, the art you thrifted, the spot on the wall where your dog leans his head when he naps, your sanctuary. And now it's the backup plan. That's when it starts to click. They're not just dropping by, they're circling. You go back through old messages, subtle questions from your uncle about what your square footage is, a stray comment from your mother. Well, at least someone in the family has stability. You remember how Aunt Marion showed up and unpacked without asking, how she'd opened your fridge like it was hers, asked if you could swap the mattress in the guest room. Little things, all of them. But when you stack them together, it becomes a staircase, one that leads right to your front door. And you weren't even invited into the planning conversation. You don't sleep much that night. It's not fear keeping you up, it's clarity. They didn't want you when you were grieving, struggling, or working late shifts with takeout for dinner. But now that your world is steady, now that your space is clean, and your bills are paid, and your dog is trained not to jump on guests, suddenly you're convenient. Suddenly you're real estate. It's not just your home they want. It's your peace, your structure, the quiet you worked years to build, now seen as a spare room for people who never offered you one. And somehow, the thing that hurts the most isn't the manipulation. It's the ease, the way they assumed you'd say yes, that you'd be too grateful, too lonely, too polite to say no. They didn't underestimate your house. They underestimated you. You don't hear the knock. Because there isn't one. You're in the kitchen folding laundry when the dog barks sharp and surprised. Not his usual bark, the one for birds or delivery trucks. This one has a question mark at the end. You walk into the hallway and freeze. The door's already open. Standing inside your house inside is your cousin Julian tracking muddy footprints across your welcome mat, like he's on a scavenger hunt for a better life. Behind him, 2 garbage bags, 1 duffel, and a potted plant. He looks up and grins. Hey, Aunt Marion said it'd be chill if I came early. You blink, words fail you. It's not that you're speechless, it's that your vocabulary has left the building entirely. Julian takes your silence as permission and starts walking toward the guest room, like this is an Airbnb, and he's the 5-star guest. Only for a couple weeks he calls over his shoulder. Then we'll figure things out. You follow him into the hallway and stop in the doorway as he starts unzipping bags and tossing hoodies onto the bed you made with clean sheets yesterday. He's narrating casually something about his lease ending early and needing a minute to breathe. His voice is too loud. He talks like this is already decided. The air feels wrong. Your dog lingers beside you, ears flat. He knows too. You clear your throat. Julian, I didn't say you could stay here. He laughs, doesn't stop unpacking. It's just temporary. Family helps family, right? There it is again. Family. The magic word they think overrides all boundaries, erases all hesitation. You say it slower this time. I didn't say you could stay here. He finally turns, looks at you, really looks. Like your voice is suddenly a sound he has to notice. You serious? You nod. He scoffs. Wow. Okay, so that's how it is. You don't reply. Just stand still like you're made of stone and steam. He throws a hoodie back into the bag, mumbles something you're glad you don't hear clearly, and starts repacking with the angry energy of someone who assumed your kindness was a default setting. As he leaves, he doesn't slam the door. He just closes it like punctuation, like an ellipsis. As if this isn't the end, just a pause. You're still holding a clean towel in your hand. It takes you a long minute to realize your fingers have curled around it so tightly the fabric has creased. You walk to the door, lock it slowly, then check every other lock in the house. Something settles in you. Not fear. Resolve? They won't stop. Not unless you make them. You open your phone, scroll through contacts until you reach one you've never used. Jack H. Attorney Home, Land Use. You'd saved the number years ago after that weird neighbor tried to build a fence across your yard. Never thought you'd need it again. You tap the number. A calm voice answers. Jack here? You explain briefly, flatly. Just the bones of it. He listens, then says, we can draw a line, legally, clearly, quietly. You exhale. It feels like the first real breath of the week. They say it over lunch like it's a joke. You're at a family gathering you weren't actually invited to. You just showed up because it's public and local, and you wanted to prove to yourself that you could still belong. You bring a store-bought pie, you wear neutral colors, you brace for the awkward smiles. And then in between bites of potato salad, someone says it. Come on, what do you know about family? You don't even have a family. Laughter follows, that low conspiratorial kind, half teasing, half cruel. You freeze. Your fork hovers midair. The person who said it, your uncle, maybe waves a hand backpedaling. I mean, like, not in a bad way, just, no kids, no spouse. Your place is quiet, kind of perfect for regrouping. Regrouping, as in they're regrouping. The silence that follows is thick with recognition. Everyone at the table knows what's being said, even if no one says it clearly. You are in their minds the spare, the single, the one with square footage and no obligations, the one who can be leaned on, slept in, borrowed from, because your life is quiet. But they don't know your quiet isn't empty. They don't understand that your mornings are full of light, your evenings filled with the comfort of your own pace, that your weekends are not wasted, they're yours, that your quiet was earned not from loneliness, but from clarity. You put down your fork, not gently, not violently, just definitively. The table goes still. Someone coughs. Your cousin stares down at her plate like the chicken salad might hold a different topic. You wipe your hands with a napkin and stand. Thanks for lunch, you say, voice even. Next time, just text me the punchline so I don't have to show up. You leave. No plate, no goodbye. Outside, you sit in your car and exhale so deeply your ribs loosen. Inside your head, the word family echoes. But now it sounds hollow, like a bell rung one too many times. Back home, you call Jack. He answers on the first ring. Did something happen? You nod, then realize he can't see you. It's time, you say. Let's do it. You meet him the next morning at the cafe near your office. He's younger than you imagined, in a blazer that doesn't quite fit right and glasses that slide down his nose. But his presence is firm, steady, the kind of calm that makes you feel like things can still be managed. Over coffee, he lays it out. A formal letter, legal language, polite but immovable. You'll establish your home as private property with no shared rights or implicit invitations. Any attempt to enter or settle without your consent will be considered trespassing. You ask, isn't that a little harsh? He pauses. Would it be harsh if they were strangers? That lands harder than you expect. Because no, it wouldn't be. And maybe in some ways they are strangers now. People you used to know. People who stopped asking about your days, your fears, your joy. People who replaced connection with expectation. He slides the draft across the table. Want to sleep on it? You shake your head. Print it. It feels good to say, like closing a window before the storm. When you get home that night, you change the locks. Not because you're scared. Because you're done being polite about your own boundaries. It's supposed to be a mistake. A digital hiccup. An accidental forward. But it lands in your inbox like thunder. Subject line, game plan, backup moves, sender Lydia, recipients, not you, or at least not originally. The message is a screenshot from their private group chat, a thread you were never supposed to see. At first glance, it looks harmless, an image of your house pulled from Google Street View, surrounded by emojis. Then you read the messages below. Marion Julian says it's livable. Not super spacious, but cozy. Good bones, Uncle Ray. Once they're softened, we start the shift. Couple months max. Lydia ease them out gently. They won't even notice until it's done. Ray again will frame it like support. A healing environment. They'll be too polite to push back. Lydia. And if they resist Marion, we outvote. They always fold. You read it once, then again. By the third time, your hands are shaking. Ease you out, they always fold. This isn't an assumption, it's a plan. You stare at your screen and realize this wasn't a misstep. This was a long game. They're trying to bleed you out of your own house using kindness as a weapon. Act supportive while they rearrange the furniture. Smile as they erase you room by room. They call it family. You call it invasion. The most disturbing part, it's not even personal to them. You're a location. A space that happens to have a quiet person inside it. A person who in their mind has no one to defend them. You don't cry. You don't scream. Instead, you forward the email to Jack with the subject line, proceed. Within 24 hours, the letter is delivered. Certified mail, legal stamp. Language so precise, it slices clean. It informs the recipients, Aunt Marion, Uncle Ray, Lydia, Julian, and anyone else who might be circling, that the property is under sole ownership with legal protections enforced. Unauthorized entry or occupation will be treated as a civil violation. There is no emotion in the letter, and that's what makes it powerful. You don't chase them down or beg them to see your side. You just draw the line. The next few days are quiet, too quiet. No texts, no calls, not even the passive-aggressive kind. Then your neighbor calls. Someone came by asking about you, she says. Middle-aged lady, said she was concerned about your stability. Wanted to know if you were open to sharing your space during this tough time. You close your eyes. They're still trying, still spinning the story, so you're the unstable one. You thank your neighbor, then almost out of reflex, you drive to the hardware store and buy a motion sensor camera for your front porch. Because trust is one thing, and boundaries are another. The next morning, a group text pops up from Lydia. It's a string of vague complaints, something about being iced out trying to help, and how sad it is when people let money change them. You don't reply. You just watch the message count tick up. 1 unread, then 2, then 5, then silence. They've realized the game is over, and the door they assumed would always open now has legal hinges. You don't tell anyone you're leaving town. You pack light. Just the essentials, your laptop, your dog, a week's worth of clothes, and the soft blanket that smells like home. You don't tell the neighbors. You don't post it online. You just drive, not far, just enough to breathe. Enough to put distance between you and the secondhand entitlement that's been knocking at your door. Before you go, you give Jack a key. You leave him with a list of names and a single instruction. If they show up again, you answer. Not me. He nods. No hesitation. I'll handle it. You believe him. 3 days in, you're walking your dog along a wooded trail when your phone buzzes. One notification. A message from Jack. Jack. They came. Jack tried to act casual, then annoyed, then confused. Jack. I told them the property was protected. I handed them the letter again. They tried to argue. I shut the door. Jack. They stood outside for 5 minutes, then left. No pictures, no dramatics, just facts. You reread the messages like a bomb. The clarity, the boundaries, the simplicity of someone else saying no so you don't have to. You text back, "Thank you." He replies, "You're welcome. They won't be back." That night in the Airbnb cabin with creaky floors and no signal unless you stand on a chair, you sleep deeper than you have in weeks. Not because the air is cleaner, not because the town is quiet, but because you are. Your nervous system, usually humming like a fridge in the background, finally goes still. Back home, your house remains untouched. No footprints on the mat. No strange perfume on your furniture. The next morning, Jack sends you a voicemail. You recognize Lydia's voice before she even says her name. "Hi, we didn't realize things had gotten so formal. We thought we were just visiting. I guess maybe you're going through something. I just hope you know we were trying to help, not, take over or whatever. Anyway, call if you want to talk. Or not. Whatever." It's the whatever that seals it. That quiet insult masquerading as indifference. You forward the voicemail to a folder labeled Evidence. You're not planning to use it. You just like the act of saving it, naming it, containing it. Because for the first time, the narrative isn't slipping through your fingers. It's held, archived, defined. You return home 2 days later. The air smells like lemon balm and books. Your plants have survived. Your dog runs laps in celebration. The house welcomes you like an old friend. You check the cameras. Nothing but squirrels and delivery trucks. No familiar shadows. No uninvited silhouettes. You sit on your porch with a cup of tea watching the wind move through the leaves. Inside, your lawyer's letter still sits on the entryway table, uncreased, undisturbed. You don't need to look at it. You just need to know it's there. For years, you thought being kind meant being accessible, that you had to leave the door ajar just in case someone needed you. But now you understand boundaries are not walls. They are gates, and you get to decide who holds the key. It's quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful but deliberate, calculated. Like the pause in a conversation right before someone tries to guilt you. The family group chat, the one you were never meant to be part of, is now a digital graveyard. No updates, no memes, no invitations. Just the last remnants of their failed plans sitting in the scrollback unsent, unread, and now, unspoken. You open it sometimes just to check. Not because you want in, just to confirm the silence is still intact. And it is. A few reactions to old photos, a single from your uncle, and then nothing. You've become the ghost they don't know how to talk about. At brunch with a mutual friend, someone mentions Lydia. She's been pretty quiet lately. Something about losing a place she thought she'd have. Says it's complicated. Family stuff. You raise your eyebrows, take a sip of coffee. Huh. That's unfortunate. You don't offer details. You don't correct the narrative. Because at this point, what are they really going to say? That they tried to move into your house like it was a summer rental. That they formed a digital conspiracy and called it love. That your refusal to be steamrolled was the real betrayal. No, they'll stay silent. Not out of respect, but out of confusion. Because people like that don't know what to do with someone who simply doesn't flinch. At home, your doorbell goes untouched. Birthdays come and go. Holidays pass. You receive fewer and fewer texts. The obligatory "you coming to Easter" message doesn't arrive this year. Neither does the guilt trip that usually follows. And strangely, you don't feel sad. You feel spacious. You realize now that attention was never affection. That proximity was never connection. That being kept close wasn't the same as being cared for. You scroll back through old messages and see it clearly how often you were the one reaching out, asking how people were doing, offering to help, checking in after surgeries, job losses, birthdays, and how rare it was that anyone asked the same of you. It was never reciprocal. It was obligation camouflaged as tradition. You remember last Christmas when Aunt Marion gave you a generic candle and told you I didn't know what you'd want, your life's kind of a mystery. Funny how people call you distant when they never ask you anything real. Now your house feels like it's breathing again. No passive-aggressive drop-ins. No missing leftovers from the fridge. No cousin casually bringing over just a few things to store. It's just you, your rhythm, your rules. The group chat isn't dead. It's dormant. You know, one day someone might try to revive it. Maybe with a baby announcement or a medical scare or a nostalgic meme. But you won't respond. Not because you're bitter, but because you're better. You've built something they never understood. A life that doesn't need their approval to be whole. The first holiday rolls around, and for the first time, you don't even look at your phone. No dread, no curiosity, just a stillness that surprises you. Like a muscle you didn't realize was always tensed, finally letting go. You don't check for the invitation that isn't coming. You don't pace by the window wondering if someone might try to stop by anyway. You just bake your own pie, light a candle, play music you actually like. And it feels safe. Not triumphant, not dramatic, just quietly, profoundly safe. Your doorbell doesn't ring. No cars idle at the curb. No shadows pass your windows. It's not just that they're gone. It's that they've stopped pretending they ever deserved to stay. You take your dog for a long walk in the late afternoon. The air is cold, but your hands are warm in your pockets. The neighborhood is filled with soft sounds, laughter from a backyard 2 houses down, wind chimes on someone's porch, the hum of a distant grill. And for once, none of it feels like it's passing you by. Your home is yours again. Not just legally, not just technically, but spiritually. You start to notice the small things again, the way the light hits your bookshelf in the morning, the sound of the kettle clicking off, the smell of basil from the windowsill planter. You start sleeping better, not because you're tired, but because there's nothing left to guard. No unspoken threat, no coded message to decipher. One morning while watering your plants, you realize they haven't reached out in weeks. Not even a half-hearted meme. Not even a vague, "How have you been?" It's like they've finally learned the most important rule of your new boundary. If you don't knock, you don't enter. One day a neighbor asks casually, "Hey, haven't seen your cousin's car around in a while. Everything okay?" You smile. Yeah, everything's exactly where it belongs. There's no bitterness when you say it, just clarity, because you're not haunted by what they tried to do. You're proud of what you refused to allow. Your home isn't a fortress anymore. It's a garden, one you don't mind keeping a gate around, not to keep people out, but to remind yourself who gets to come in. And as you wipe your hands on a dish towel and sit by the window with your tea, you catch your own reflection in the glass. You look calm, rooted, like someone who finally belongs to themselves. You don't think of it as revenge. Not anymore. At first, maybe there was a flicker of satisfaction that moment Jack described their confused faces, when he opened your front door, not them. That tiny jolt of "I told you so" crackling like static beneath your ribs. But now it's something softer, something cleaner, like setting down a bag you didn't realize you'd been carrying. You remember the version of yourself that would have let them in, would have bitten your tongue, would have shared your space, would have rearranged your life to make room for people who'd never once done the same for you. You remember that person with so much compassion, not shame, not anger, just love. Because that person only wanted to be loved. But love doesn't come from hosting people who mock you. It doesn't come from making yourself small so someone else can stretch out. It doesn't come from letting guilt set up camp in your living room. You're not cold. You're not cruel. You just finally stopped mistaking obligation for affection. They tried to frame it like a favor. Let us stay. Just for now. You've got the space. But you saw the roots under it. The expectation that you'd cave. The assumption that you were alone enough to be grateful for company no matter how uninvited. You didn't slam any doors. You didn't yell. You didn't burn bridges. You just made a choice. And choices, when made with clarity, don't need an explanation. You think of the lawyer's letter sometimes, not the wording, but the weight of it. The invisible perimeter it set around your peace. And how, ever since then, nothing has tried to cross it. You haven't heard from them in months. Even on your birthday, there was no text, no performative post, no last-ditch olive branch. Just silence. And for the first time in your life, silence feels like a gift. You start inviting new people into your world, friends who listen when you speak, who ask questions, who don't assume you're quiet, means you have no story. You meet someone, you take it slow. They don't ask why your family isn't in your photos. They just say, "I like your home. It feels intentional." You smile. Because it is. Everything inside these walls was chosen. The colors, the scents, the people allowed in, even the memories. You light a candle in the hallway on a quiet night, just because it smells like eucalyptus and peace. And when you catch your reflection again, same window, same you whisper something that only your walls will hear. I didn't shut them out. I let myself in. The evenings are longer now, not in minutes, but in feeling. You find yourself stretching into the quiet, lingering over tea, walking slower through each room, pausing in doorways just to look. The silence has shifted. It's not the kind that waits for footsteps or apologies. It's the kind that holds you gently, like breath between thoughts. You no longer brace for interruption. There's no flicker of fear when the doorbell rings, because it doesn't. There's no need to defend your space anymore. You don't live on guard. You live grounded. It's funny how peace doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it just slips in when no one else is watching, curls up beside you like a dog at your feet and waits for you to notice. Your home is no longer a question mark. It's a period, a full stop. A sentence you now say with pride, "This is mine. I built this." And you did. With patience, with pain, with the quiet power of someone who no longer needs to be included to feel complete. Not everyone will understand that, but that's okay. Some understand only presence, but you've learned the art of absence, of choosing who gets to witness your life. And as you settle in for the night, the world still turning just beyond your windows, a final thought drifts in, slow and sure. Some nights just lying still and breathing softly is enough to return home to yourself.